This is Stare Down the Bull. I'm your host, Susan Hunt. Around here, we tackle the hard stuff: how to lead with clarity, leveraging AI, and turn strategy into real results. My guest today brings a powerful perspective on how to do exactly that. Let's dive in. Welcome to Stare Down the Bull. Today on the show, I'm excited to speak to Cortney Jonas Burnos. I've been looking forward to this conversation because her story says a lot about what success really looks like behind the scenes. Cortney started in a Disney call center and worked her way up to becoming a VP of AI, an incredible journey on its own. But what makes her story powerful is that while building this career, she also navigated real personal challenges that most people never see. Live in a culture where people feel pressure to show up polished at work, as if struggling personally somehow makes them less capable. But the truth is, almost everyone is carrying something. So today I want to go deeper than titles and career highlights. I want to talk about the tension between professionalism and humanity, what it costs to always appear fine, and whether hiding struggles is actually strength or just survival. I also want to explore your personal perspective on leadership, AI, resilience, and authenticity through some honest questions. Cortney, thank you for joining. So good to see you.
It's good to see you too, Susan. Thank you for having me on today.
Yeah, it's awesome. So you started as a cast member in the Disney call center and ended up as the VP of AI. Disney's known for its user experience from top to bottom. So I love this part of your journey. What did you learn at the bottom that people at the top still don't understand?
I was so honored to learn this industry from the bottom up, and it's been a tremendous benefit to me. At Disney, those magic moments, those are emotional transactions that are based on empathy and connection. There's this emotional intelligence that's required to really make a connection, especially over the phone
Yeah.
with Disney guests that just doesn't happen anywhere else. And there's no way to measure it. So one thing in contact centers and in the CX world, there's all these dashboards, metrics, frameworks, and processes, all those traditional metrics. None of them measure that emotional transaction that it takes to make magic. And I learned that very early coming into this industry on the ground floor.
That's amazing. And, not for nothing, but I think that's going to be a really hard thing to duplicate in AI and call centers, especially for Disney. So we'll see how that goes. But it's the human touch that makes the difference. And they do it really, really well at Disney. They train their people really well.
And I think that's still true. Even
Yeah.
in an AI environment, it's the people that make the difference.
Absolutely. I mean, you've built your career in AI inside environments that are deeply human and emotional. Where does AI fail hardest in the real world, in your opinion?
Okay, well, there's lots of talk about getting the underlying data and process work right. And
Yeah.
that's true, but that's actually not the biggest issue that I see. AI fails really hard in environments where there's no focus on people, environments where they just work on what AI can we implement with no thought to AI literacy, change management, testing, training, learning, experience. It's just a big miss in the industry when they're only thinking about AI and they're not designing with people in mind. The core tenet that I follow is to produce systems that support people in doing their best work. I call it an augmented systems framework. It's a
Yeah.
way to design AI with the philosophy that you can't design the AI in a vacuum. You have to design it to work with the people that are doing the jobs. When there's a big focus on short term ROI or just how do we eliminate headcount, it ultimately fails. Unless
Yes.
you're designing it with the people that are going to work with it in mind, um, you're not going to see success.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked to so many customers that are, they rushed in to do something in AI. They spent a lot of money in AI. If you listen to other sessions, there's a lot of talk about this, feeling this need to rush into AI and then spending money and then failing at it. initially and then having to regroup to do something that is meaningful to the business and to the people that are using the tools, right? So I
Very.
think we're kind of at that phase now, the regrouping phase where we're kind of figuring out what's really going to be important. And I could hear, I mean, you worked in really high performance environments like McKinsey. I could hear your McKinsey coming out there a little bit in your last comment. How much of your success came from fitting the mold, do you think, and how much came from quietly breaking the mold?
I feel like any of my old friends at McKinsey who were listening will probably laugh at that question. In a lot of ways, McKinsey was too structured for me. Every
Yeah,
output was a giant PowerPoint deck, and that didn't feel like real work to me. It felt like I was always talking about the work instead of actually doing it. Uh, that said, I have to confess, I learned a lot from that process.
sure.
It happened my learning there happened almost in dog years. At light speed, I
Yeah,
learned that the real work of strategy was building a framework, and making a plan. Execution comes later, and believe it or not, no matter how hard that is, that's actually the easy part. Those tactics, that you need to execute against a framework, that's the part that you can send other people out to do, but that high level strategy and the framework for how to get work done, I learned how to apply that at McKinsey, and I'm grateful for that. But I did push hard against my work. Just it felt like just making PowerPoint all the time, and it took me a while to really understand what I was learning.
yeah.
Uh,
I I mean, I think consulting, obviously, the model for consulting is to continuously add more work in order for it to be a successful ongoing business, right? So the work makes the work kind of thing, and that's really tough for people that really care about getting shit done, getting the job done. So, I mean, in my consulting business, I'm like a whirlwind when I go into a company because I might only have 90 days or 120 days. It completely breaks the model of consulting. But to me, having the impact and really making a difference in a short period of time, I think is really, really important. And if I'm lucky enough for them to give me more business as a result of doing a whole bunch of stuff for them really, really fast, great. If not, that's okay too. I still made an impact. They still got what they needed. And, it's not your typical consulting model at all. So I could see where you would be breaking the mold on that very often um, in consulting because you are somebody who has always got stuff done. So
yeah,
that's
and
pretty,
that was the challenge. Was we made a plan, and then I would step away, and someone else would do the work.
yeah,
Uh, and I did not enjoy that.
that's not your
But I've
thing.
been no, that's not it. But I've been able to bridge that gap. So I exited the industry, that's what they call it when you leave consulting, in
Huh?
24 and joined Transcom as the VP of AI. And now I get to do that great zoom out, create a strategy, create a framework, and then go out and actually be able to do the work. And I feel like that's made a tremendous difference in how effective I can be in this role. So now when I talk to clients, I understand their high level business challenge before we ever talk about AI solutions.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes they're thinking of implementing this massive automation. But when we really get down to the business challenge, that's not the answer. And I'll be the first person to say, this is not where you should be using AI in your business. And sometimes that shocks people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's good that you're shocking them because otherwise they're just doing these giant things and they're not coming back with results, and that's really frustrating at the C level, at every single level, so all the help that people can give them out there right now, I think is a good thing.
100%. When you're forcing these big AI implementations, instead of solving a business problem, implementing AI becomes your new problem.
Yeah. Just to switch gears a little bit here, because I wanted to get into this. You and I had this great conversation about how we all kind of wear this mask in the corporate world, and I started to think about it like, why do we really do that? Like everybody's got something going on, but when you're going through something personal, you feel like you're the only person in the entire organization, no matter how big your company is, that has personal struggles, and that's just so ridiculous. I know that you lived through personal challenges while, continuing to show up professionally. Was that strength or was that just survival? Because I'm really starting to think about this differently than what I had in the past now.
Yeah, I mean, if you live long enough, you're gonna have struggles that you go through while you're working. I had a situation a few years ago while I was still at McKinsey. I had 2 deaths in my family that resulted in 3 kids going to foster care. Because of their ages, they were going to group homes. I knew these kids, I'd watched them grow up. I had 1 weekend to decide what to do. And I thought about it as much as you can in 2 days and just
Yeah.
decided to take the leap. I got certified as a foster parent and I agreed to take in 3 teenagers who had lost their parents. I didn't have room, I didn't have time, I didn't know how to handle the complex traumas they were bringing with them. I mean, I was overwhelmed, but I also felt like I just in my heart, I just couldn't say no. Work got hard,
Yeah.
travel, clients, meetings, like nothing stopped, nothing turned down. Home was harder. All of a sudden, instead of having just my 3 kids, I had 6 kids and it seemed like they were hungry all the time.
They are, they're teenagers.
Right? But I didn't feel like I could ask for help at work. And McKinsey, and I'm sure it's like this at a lot of places, but getting staffed on a project was highly competitive. You have to be selected among your peers. You have to be available. And I felt like if people knew I was having a struggle, that I would risk not getting staffed. If they knew I was taking time off to take these kids to therapy appointments and meet with social workers, would they think that I wasn't going to be dedicated to the work? So I just kept it as quiet as I could. And ultimately, after doing that for months and months and months, I decided if I was going to do a good job of taking care of my now very big family, I needed to move on from McKinsey. It was a really tough. That was a tougher decision than deciding if I was going to become a foster parent in the first place.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that, first of all. And secondly, it's um it's kind of crazy that we're still in a spot where we're hiding what's going on in our personal lives, if you ask me. And I don't know, maybe this is just age, but I mean, me and every woman I came up with, every woman I knew, and men too, would literally like not talk about what was really going on at home. 90% of the time. I mean, I was on a plane 6 weeks after having a baby. When I think back on that now, I think that's insane. Like, that is insane. But at the time, it's like what we had to do. And I just don't know why we treat personal struggles at work like they're something to hide when everybody is dealing with something. You have any thoughts on that? I mean, this is very much, I feel like we were brought up to think this way. Like, I remember my dad being like, you leave your work at work and you leave your home at home. But now nobody leaves their work at work. It's all meshed together, which is perfectly acceptable. We have to have our work life be obvious to our family because we're at home and we're working, we're on our laptops, but we can't have our personal life be obvious at work, which is really unbalanced when you think about it.
I hope that's changing. I mean, I've always been ambitious going way back to Disney. And I remember back then I heard another cast member complain about somebody who was missing work all the time because of her kids. It made me feel like, and I was pretty young then, it was before I had kids, but it made me feel like moms in the workplace were sort of less than.
Yes.
Everybody saw them as unreliable, and it felt like something I couldn't show at my job. So I felt like I was getting trained by my peers from a really early age. And between us, I'm sure we both have so many stories of times we showed up to work a little too authentically and got treated like a girl. It's
Yeah.
the wrong lesson, and we all learned it too well. But I always felt like I had to hide the most important part of my life, my kids,
Yeah.
um, to be able to further my career. So I did. Um, and I, I remember a story like the one you just told. I was workforce management director at another company years and years ago. I'd just gotten back from maternity leave, but I had an office. So I would just close the door and keep on working when I was pumping. And back then you didn't turn your video on conference calls. So I would
Right.
just do my back to
Thank
back
God.
all day long. I know it was kind of nice. Um, but I remember I was on a call one time with my pump going because the thing was on all the time, it seemed like. And someone said, "What is that background noise? Like, is someone printing?" And it was easier for me to be like, yeah, that's me, I'm printing, than it was it what I was actually doing.
Oh, it
Uh,
would have been so great if you said, "Oh, I'm breast pumping."
it's actually my
It would have
breast
been so
pump.
great.
But I've always felt like my whole career, I had to sort of hide the things that make me female, and hide my motherhood to continue to grow my career. And I think that's a shame now that I look back on it.
It's insane. I mean, anybody that thinks that a mother who's also working is less than, I mean, literally, it is 2 full-time jobs. That's what we've kind of come to terms with. And I've talked to, a bunch of girls, and they always ask me the same question, how do you balance personal and work? And I'm like, you really don't. Like, something's got to give. You're one person. And they don't want to hear that, but that's the truth. We were always told, oh, you can have it all. You can have it all. Well, you can, but it's basically going to kill you eventually.
Right. That's
And
right.
Ariane Huffington is the first one that kind of said that, right? When she had a heart attack in her chair and she started writing books about how we're leaning in a little bit too much. Or we get this kind of messaging all the time that we have to do more just to be equal. And then we have to do more when we get home as well. So, I feel there's a big change happening right now in the way that women look at that stuff. And, this is a whole nother topic, but I think it also has to do with why a lot of women have decided either they're not going to have children or they're not going to get married because it ends up being free labor on the other side of the workday. And it's another 40 hours a week. So it is interesting that it is kind of changing in that direction. And you have to ask yourself, what point does being professional become hiding or even lying to yourself or your teams when you're going through all of this stuff? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, that's such a great question. It's something I've given a lot of thought to, especially the last few years, because I feel that shift happening too.
Yeah.
I think it's a cycle that we need to break. I want to be a better model for the women that are coming up behind us. It's okay to be authentically female. It's important to be a mother. It's fantastic to have a career. And we're really good at these jobs. We should not
Yeah.
get less of them because we have kids at home. We don't have to be just like the men. Our value is in our femaleness. Like, for example, take sales. 50% of our buyers are women. It's silly to think that we need to work exactly like men and pretend to be like men. Our value really is in our authenticity in that field, as well as a whole bunch of others.
Yeah.
I also think that companies overall are way better when men and women have seats at the most important tables. I get that every day at Transcom. It's one of the rare global companies with very strong female leaders in the highest positions at our company. I actually got to speak to our CFO one on one on a call early this morning, and she's just an incredible person. But seeing women at the highest levels of the company, I see our company operate in a stronger and more balanced way. And I do feel like things are changing. But that said, I think we all have to unlearn some tough lessons and really be bold about showing up as our authentic selves to give younger women a template for success without hiding.
Yeah. Somebody said to me the other day, and I'm a grandmother now, and it's like a totally different ball of wax because, well, she's 4, but I spend so much time with her. I absolutely love her. She's hysterical, absolutely hysterical kid. And, I'm able to be more present with her than I was with my own children when they were this age. And it's really a fascinating thing to be able to do. And somebody said to me, well, I don't want to get between, I don't know, she was over and somebody in business said, well, I don't want to get between you and your granddaughter. And I said, don't even try it. Like, not happening.
Yeah,
It is
not
not
negotiable.
happening. And
Right.
I meant it 100%, that nothing comes between me and my granddaughter. So, I think, do you think that hiding what you were going through made you better at your job or did it limit your effectiveness, do you think?
It absolutely limited my effectiveness. I think now I was really underestimating the people around me. It felt like too big of a gamble to admit what was happening in my life and ask for some accommodations around travel or ask for some support getting staffed. Maybe I could do multiple projects at halftime instead of being dedicated full time with less travel commitment. But I'd never even asked. And then in the end, I ended up leaving anyway. It would have been a
Yeah.
really great opportunity for me to give the people around me and the leaders in my organization an opportunity to be human, you know?
Yeah.
just like an
So
opportunity.
that's definitely on you. It would have been smart to try and take the risk and ask before you left, but this is what we do because we don't want to, even into the next job. But it has to change. It just has to change. And I think the newer generation is forcing the change. Like they're not willing to give up their life for work. So it's a whole different ball of wax at this point, in
I'm
my
happy to see it.
opinion.
I
Yeah,
am, I'm
I'm
happy to
happy
see
to see it too because I don't really, every woman that I worked with loved their children to death. Their families were so important to them. But we would talk amongst ourselves, of course,
it.
like we would know what was going on. And I always made a point of knowing what was happening in the lives of the people that worked directly for me. And they, in turn, did the same thing so that we could give a little grace when something was going wrong because things do go wrong. You know, people die, there's, births, that's going right, actually. There's all kinds of things that happen and it's important to give a little grace. But the companies don't make it easy because giving grace doesn't change the fact that now you're going to have to do three times the work to give the grace. Whoever's giving the grace is going to have to pick up the slack, which is okay. That's the way it should be. But yeah, there's still plenty of work to be done in that arena.
Yeah, I think we're also kind of conditioned not to ask for or accept help. It's part of like our ethos of being strong, independent women, which is required to grow this big career. But
Yeah,
I thought about this yesterday. I was on a flight from Nashville to Kansas City, and this mom got on the plane. She was wearing an infant, and she was like kind of dragging this unhappy toddler behind her, and her hands are full. And several people jumped up to help her carry the things that were in her hands so she could
that's
hand
nice.
the kids and then put her bag in the overhead bin for her without her asking or anything. And then I didn't hear anybody complain when her baby was crying. And it just really makes me wonder, like, why do I feel like I have to hide? Is that the system or is that just me? Like,
No,
will I let
it's
somebody put
not
my
you.
overhead
It's
bin?
it's kind of like how we were it's how we were brought up through business. And this is what I mean, things are changing. So people are hopefully becoming more compassionate towards moms. But it's still a dog eat dog world out there. So, it's like I think this is why we show up like this. Just there's no problems, nothing's going on. And the men have to do it too. Even if they have a wife to support them, they have to too. If there's something horrible going on in their lives, they have to show up and act like everything is fine as well. So it's not
Absolutely.
just us, it's everybody. It doesn't
Right.
make it right. It makes it it's kind of crazy actually. Um, if you could go back to your younger self in the Disney Center, what would you tell her about what it really takes to get to where you are now? Because you're in a big role as the vice president of AI at a big company. What would you tell her?
I worked hard from very early in my career to be a senior leader in a contact center. It was something I wanted to do for a long time. I aspired to that role. I eventually earned it. And I was so proud of it. And I felt like I'm leading people, I'm creating jobs in my community. I'm making it. And then I got laid off. And then I got laid off again. It makes you question like your value and your
Yeah.
skills. Am I really even good at anything? And then I made a big pivot into tech about 10 years ago. I joined a company that was really early in the AI solution race. That's where you and I met.
Hmm.
Um, and that by the way, while we were there, your experience and authority like shined there and really drew me to you. And that's what I admired about you at the time.
Thank you.
So I'd go back to early 20s me and I'd give two pieces of advice. The first one is find the people who look like who you want to be when you grow up. For me, that was sort of like finding you. Finding I wanted to be a professional woman who was an absolute expert in her field. And so I could find those people and sort of watch how they operated and decide how to integrate that in my operating model. And then the other thing is trust the journey. You
Yes.
from every experience, even the ones that come to like a crash and burn ending,
Yeah.
that crazy boss, learning how to work from home through a pandemic, traveling too much and then not traveling at all. Those are the things that really teach you who you are and they teach you what your non-negotiables are.
Yeah, I agree. You learn so much more from failing than you ever do from winning. for
Oh,
sure.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
it doesn't matter the age. It doesn't matter the age. I just had a huge learning in my life over the last 12 months, and I never thought I'd learn anything again, and I did. So you're never too old to learn something new about yourself and about how you wanna show up and how you wanna be treated and what your boundaries are and all of that stuff, so
Absolutely. Fortunately and unfortunately, there are some lessons I really want to keep learning, and then some that I'd be fine leaving in my past, and they just keep showing up.
yeah, well, until you learn it, it's gonna keep showing up, right? So now I'm kinda like, "Okay, I've learned this one 3 times now. I get it. I'm not gonna make the same mistake again."
You got it
Yeah.
now.
I got it this time. It took
Right.
3 times, but I got it this time. Oh, God. So you have stared down the bull a lot in your career and in your life. What is the one thing you still haven't said out loud?
I'm braver than I've ever thought that I was.
Oh,
I'm as strong as I've ever been in my life, and my career isn't over yet. I have a lot more work to
no. Well, that's great. Thank you. I'm so grateful that you're willing to have this conversation because I think a lot of people are going to hear themselves through your story. So thank you for joining me on Stare Down the Bowl today, Courtney.
Absolutely. It was great to have this conversation and good to see you again, Susan.
Yeah, good to see you too. Thank you for listening to Stare Down the Bowl. If today's conversation sparked new ideas, share it with a colleague and keep the momentum going. The future belongs to leaders who act, so subscribe and join us again next week.